You're listening to the Veterinary Innovation Podcast.
You're listening to the Veterinary Innovation Podcast. My name is Sean Wilkie, and along with my awesome co-host, we interview the innovators in this space every week. Ivan, please go ahead and get us started.
Hey, I'm Ivan Zach, and I'm excited to introduce today Baran Schultz. Baran started Schultz Technology in 2000, back when he was servicing the dial-up modems. I'm just kidding. The technology did evolve since then. He went to Valley Forge Military School, where he learned discipline and how to conduct himself in a proper manner, which Sean should also do. After military school, Baran went to graduate from St. Joseph with a degree in finance. He worked as an IT person for the Hilton prior to wanting to start his own business. For the last 23 years, he has grown his company to be a top 150 MSP, a leading phone provider, and one of the only true 24/7 IT help desks in the market. Baran, welcome to the show. Thank you for finding the time.
Ivan, thank you. Sean, thank you very much. Glad to be here.
So Sean claims he dabbled in the MSP space, so he'll be better versed in the topic. Uh, but we're going through this in my current business, so we're getting into these clinics that we partner with, and then you're trying to figure out what's their IT infrastructure, how to combat their one password that is written on a sticky note next to the computers, all the computers, and all that fun stuff.
Yes.
So for those that don't know what MSP is, so managed service provider.
Correct.
Oh, you're good today.
Yes.
You're on fire, Ivan.
And look, some people don't know. This is for veterinarians. Not everybody knows what that is.
Right.
I was insulting you, not our audience.
Okay. Well, I never do that. And basically, it's about, what's your IT infrastructure? How can you improve it? And when is the time to improve it? So I want to switch maybe to this. Do you work with the individual practices, or do you also work with consolidators? And how the consolidation invasion changed the playing field, and did it improve the technology in our domain? What do you think?
Yes. So we work with both. We work with, GPs in 24 hours, and we also work with the veterinary groups. So the thing with the groups now, the groups that we work with are definitely looking to protect their practices, making sure infrastructure is great. They have the technology tools so the practice can succeed. So, we're an extension of that. So we go in and we do site surveys, and whether it's, a mom and pop general practice or one of our groups that we work with, we're really going out there to make sure we come back, tell them where their weaknesses are, where we need to have fixes, and work hard to get them where they need to be a successful practice.
Yeah, it makes tons of sense. I mean, when I operated a company in my past life called Robotnik, I used to think of the services that we provided as an MSP, as an insurance policy for business best practices and operation. Baron, when you onboard new veterinary clients, do you have that same view? Are you selling them insurance to make sure their business continues, from an IT and technology perspective?
Yes. So, Sean, we go in as doing the site survey to show them, hey, we want to help you. Now, we come out and we'll do the site survey and do demos and help them, and we have a nice educational talk with them in the beginning because, I say, I'm not here to bullshit you. Of course, I want your business, but I want you to walk away from Schultz going, hey, these people taught us, they showed us, they cared, and they want to help us grow. So that's been huge for us because people see, us encompassing everything in technology, from phones and IT and cabling and infrastructure and security, whether it's physical security or network security. They really don't think about it. It's the last thing, and Sean, we're the last thing everybody thinks about, right? Especially in budgets and an IT closet if you're building a new practice. And, so we try to make it, you're super important. If your IT is working without any hitches, your practice is going to be succeeding exponentially.
So you've seen a number of practices. I'm pretty sure a lot.
Yes,
What
sir.
is the funniest and the weirdest thing that you've seen, like like IT closet with, like, in the bathroom with a bucket of water on it on top of the development tank? What can you recall being something completely ridiculous, and when you saw it and explained it to the owner, they thought it was absolutely normal?
Well, I will tell you, every clinic we go into, and this is no offense to the owners and doctors, they think their IT is the best IT in the whole wide world until we, until we sit with them and go, there's some open flaws here, and you have some things we need to fix. But Ivan, it's funny you say that. I've seen IT racks right next to the slop sink or right next to the hot water heater. One that was the entertaining was we had a client that their network kept crashing. They called us to help them, and their network closet was in the attic, and the attic had to be about 300 degrees and no fans. And they wondered why the server kept crashing and the switches kept blowing up. So we moved that one pretty quick.
Oh man, I've seen some horror stories as well. It's just some funny stuff. But it is interesting that technology is such an afterthought. And I always say that it's really how it's developed, right?
Mm-hmm.
Back to Ivan's point, we had one computer dial-up modem. Then all of a sudden there was two computers and they were strung together and there was a modem on the floor. And then all of a sudden there's 15 and, the internet goes down and we can't send labs and paperwork. And the story gets kind of crazy nowadays because we're so reliant on technology and the internet. But what are those conversations like with the owners? So by the time they call you, usually I would imagine it's not preventative, it's something's broken.
Correct.
And how do those conversations go and how are they evolving over time in this industry? You guys are focused on the veterinary industry, but you've touched a bunch of other industries. What's this audience like? Are they taking this stuff serious finally?
So finally, Shawn, I speak at a lot of shows like you do yourself. And the biggest thing, and Ivan, we were talking a little bit about before we went live, I'll say, I bet you everybody in this room's password is password. And everybody looks down at the floor because they don't want to make eye contact with me, right? I said, I bet no one has a backup, or their backup is a thumb drive sitting in the server, or they have crappy internet and they wonder why their cloud PIMS doesn't work properly. And so, Shawn, to your point, people are more open. And the biggest thing that I tell them is, security, security, security. A lot of people think, oh, I'm just a small veterinary clinic. No one wants my data. And I use an example of a client of ours that signed on with us after they got CryptoLocker. They had no backups. Their server was toast. The ransomware they wanted 50 grand. We had to go searching, and we finally found a hard drive that they had kept that had a year-old backup on it. We had to restore for them. Well, let me tell you, they signed up for our cloud and on-prem backup like same day because we're never going to go through that again. But people do want your data because I use the example where they go, hey, if it's easy to get into 10 veterinary clinics because everybody's router password's the same, or they're not blocking anything, or they don't have antivirus, I can take care of 10 vet clinics and charge 20 grand ransomware per clinic instead of trying to, take down the bank that's next door. So people are starting to realize more and more that yes, their data is important to them and it's important to the, cyber criminals out there. So they are starting to listen better for sure.
Did you ever consider that as a go-to-market strategy? Install a ransomware on computers and then fix them? Just kidding. So here's the conversation we had with someone in your field, and they said, which is interesting, everybody's going towards cloud. And then there was this conversation where I was interested in that because the person that we were talking to said that actually cloud is less protected. If you have on-prem, then that's more secure. And that probably the only one time that I'll say anything for on-prem software. But what's your opinion on that?
Yeah, so true. It's definitely more secure. There's more things you can line up. One thing I do tell our clinics, Ivan, that do go to cloud PIMS, that for a best practice for us is to have 2 circuits. A lot of our clinics have VoIP phones with us and also have cloud PIMS, whether it's Digitail, Shepherd, EasyVet. There's a bunch of cloud PIMS there. But if they're not a client prior to us, a lot of times we're going in and they're like, my VoIP phones are crapping out. My connection to Digitails is crashing, or Shepherd's crashing, and they have crappy internet and they don't have a failover. So people that have cloud PIMS, we make sure you have 2 circuits, one for the phones and one for the PIMS. And then that failover is there. So in theory, you're never down. And we can do a tertiary back up like a 4G, hotspot or whatever the case may be. But we make them that's the only time I'll ever force one of our clients to do something, especially when they're in the cloud, to have those. And in a perfect world, they can have they need to be two separate carriers, Verizon and Comcast, Spectrum and whoever. But you do sometimes get people that only have one provider. So there's things that we try to look out for that on the cloud side. On the on-prem side, we definitely want them to have some type of backup. No external hard drive plugged into the server that they change once a week, this crazy stuff, or a thumb drive that no one takes out until, the end of the year that someone remembers it, stuff like that. So, but yes, we have really gotten a range of best practices that we make and talk to our clinics about and tell them the importance of why these are best practices and why this will make them safer, more secure, a better veterinary clinic, a more productive veterinary clinic.
There's so much to unpack there. You said like a whole pile.
Yes.
But let's go to the internet first.
Sure.
So this is such a fascinating thing because, if you're running a veterinary practice, and I've been in some big ones,
Yep.
100, 200 people working there every day.
Yep.
And they have one internet connection and they rely on a cloud-based PIMS. And then so people will often say, and when I was in this business, well, this is very expensive. And I used to always say, well, what is the cost of like one day without access to your practice management system or your telephones?
Correct.
But people don't think like that. So how do you educate them? How do you educate them and take them along?
So Shawn, sort of like I'm doing with you and Ivan right now, I'll draw it out, or I'm pretty much a handsy guy, so we're demoing and explaining to them. But to your point, as far as like if someone said to us, hey, Baran, we have fiber coming into the building and it's, $600 a month and it's crazy. And now you want us to get another circuit. Yes, Shawn, to your point, I go, oh, how important is your backups? Or if your circuit goes down and you can't get connection to your cloud PIMS, that's a problem, right? And really, when we put VoIP phones in, we don't need a huge circuit. We don't need another $600 circuit over here. You need a basic Verizon, Fios or Comcast Ethernet circuit that might be $100 more. So I tell people, is $100, $200 more a month worth peace of mind knowing you're never going to be down? And 99% of the time, the answer is yes.
So I have a question about the consolidators, because when I worked with consolidators, there are all kinds of them, and people focus on certain things that they either have competency in their company or whatever their strategic focus is on.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen that IT is not something that people think up front. And then what do you see in sort of the scope of from good to bad? Do they really think proactively and say, okay, we're buying clinics, therefore we need to establish this assessment and then, conversion and then this degree of, protection? Or is it something that you have a bunch of finance people say, we bought a clinic and there's something happening? And then, so that's probably the bad side of it. Or in the spectrum in between, what do you see for the most part? Is it a thoughtful approach and contact you as an IT partner, or is it usually like, holy shit, like we need help and what do we do going forward?
So we have a little bit of all of those things, Ivan. We have, we've dealt with some groups out there that IT is the last thought, and we're there screaming and pounding going, it has to be your first thought, not your last thought, or at least your second or third thought after you purchase the place. But most of the consolidators and most of our partners that we work with really listen to us, really take it to heart, and are really wanting to make the practice more efficient, make sure the clients are having a great ease of use from checking in to checking out, and everything in between. They want to make sure that it's secure nowadays. And I won't go into a lot of details, but I'm sure, a couple of years ago, you guys heard of the big consolidator that got ransomware through, more than half of their clinics. And that scared a lot of other consolidators. And now people will listen more and more about, okay, yeah, Baran, you're making sense on security, and we've seen it out in the field. So it's getting better every day, honestly. They're really listening, because they see that we're not here to try to waste their money. We're here to make them more money. The more efficient they are, and in a minute, I can talk to you about some of the software that we've integrated that makes them more efficient and helps them and so forth. So there's some good things out there that are happening that we're here to just enhance their, viability.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. So let's talk about the most productive practices that you have, Baron. So,
Mhm.
I mean, technology's changed,
Right.
right? We just went through COVID. Everybody figured out how to get on a Zoom
Yep.
call. We became more reliant on the internet than ever before. What does the modern veterinary practice look like? So if we're thinking about the people that are paying the most attention to like running on the best technology, whether it's telephones or PIMS
Yep.
or tablets or desktops, like what's the future look like in a veterinary practice in your opinion, kind of being right in the middle of it?
Yeah. So more and more are going to cloud PIMS. Every clinic that we have now, out of all of our clinics, I think we might have one traditional phone system. Everybody's on VoIP because it makes you more viable to move around. You're more mobile. There's apps. You can do a soft phone on your computer. Your phones are mobile, so if you're in an area that might get snow, your CSRs can take their phones home and log into their PIMS, whether it's a cloud or an on-prem PIMS. They can log in and make appointment changes and so forth. We've seen a lot of big mobility there. Um, on the server side, for the people that still have servers, and there's still a ton of people that have servers, they're getting smarter. We're making them smarter, making sure they're over-speccing their server so they have a decent life for their servers. A lot of clinics now too, probably 95% of our clinics have security cameras and access control, meaning key fob access to make their clinics more efficient. So I can open and close doors at certain times of the day for our 24-hour hospitals. And I know who's coming in and out of the building. Security's become a big thing, physical security besides, as we grow. But the clinics that are doing it well have that all encompassing. They have a great infrastructure with a great network rack and everything's labeled. They have VoIP phones. They have a great PIMS, whether it's cloud or on-prem, decent computers and laptops. A lot of clinics now are checking out from exam rooms to make that so you don't have to stress out the CSR. They go right from the exam room and they're out and they're not waiting to check out. And your 5-star Google rating goes to a 3-star because it took me 20 minutes to check out. So there's things that we help with that we see. And Shawn, I'm in probably a couple thousand clinics throughout the year, and we see what works and what doesn't work.
Yeah, you're the guy in the industry that is on a plane more than anybody that
Yeah,
I know, because you guys have support, I guess, East Coast to West Coast in the
we
States.
do.
Baron, if you had a friend, say his name was Ivan, and he was gonna start a brand new de novo practice
Yep.
tomorrow, and he came to you and said, Baron, just tell me what to buy. And so this could be a lot of the audience out there, whether they're thinking about their current infrastructure or their past
Right.
or their brand new hospital. But like, you don't have to name names, but like, give me a prescription of what I need to start from a technology perspective to start a vet clinic tomorrow.
You need a decent infrastructure. And Shawn, most people, that we walk into on existing clinics, their cabling is a disaster. So I tell people you have to start, the infrastructure's the heartbeat. You want to have decent cabling, a decent backbone. I tell people if you're going to put cameras in, but your budget can't afford it right now, wire for the cameras while your building's being built. If you have an existing practice, wire for the cameras while we're wiring your existing practice. But if you want to buy a camera once a month, once the budget is good, go for it. We do a lot of all-in-one computers. We also do a lot of laptops or tablets and so forth. So you're going to need to have a decent budget for your, whether it's cloud PIMS, have a decent 2 internet connections. If it's an on-prem server, a decent server with a strong internet connection. Absolutely 100% VoIP phones, making sure you have with the internet and the VoIP phones, your integration. We have an integration software that saves clients, 30 to 40 seconds per phone call that integrates with when the phone rings. So I'd make sure they have that integration built in. And just on the physical security side, have a security system. We have a lot of clinics putting in panic buttons now. Not that you want to talk about like, oh, this could never happen to us, but our 24-hour clinics for sure have them. If I'm walking outside with a patient, I have a panic button in my hand if God forbid something happens. So we really go and we draw up prints for them too, Shawn, on new buildings and existing, and we'll lay out the prints and lay out everything and give them some cost factors too, and give them some decent budgets.
Cloud versus server. Like, should I be putting like if I'm brand new, one hospital, web-based PIMS or on-prem?
If you have great internet, cloud PIMS.
Makes sense.
What people have to realize, again, Shawn, it's getting less and less that we find people that don't have decent internet connections. Like I said, I think I've in the last 5 years put one, traditional phone system in because they had crappy internet. They could not get anything, besides, as Ivan said, dial up or worse.
We've all run into that issue. We actually just, a clinic called us up. They want to talk to so bad 3 years ago, and they finally got Starlink, and they're like, we want to talk to you right now.
Yep.
So I think Elon's helped us with the internet thing, but I just wanted to poke you and ask you that question.
No, absolutely.
Well, gentlemen, I think we blew through the 20 minutes that we promise our listeners. Baran, what a pleasure! Thank you for opening this world of MSP for us and everything that's going on in IT world. We ask two questions at the end of each episode. Is there a book, TED Talk, video, YouTube recommendation that you could provide to our listeners?
Sure. I read The Liberator. It's about Colonel Felix Sparks in World War II. They landed in Italy in Anzio. He was one of the first to land in Italy, and he went all the way through 565 days of fighting all the way. And they were the first Americans at Dachau concentration camp. And it just tells of how he lost so many men and what they went through. And I think people forget about the sacrifices of World War II. And it's written from his perspective, and a really entertaining book. And it makes you open your eyes pretty wide on the horrors of war and what people have gone through in the past.
Yeah, it makes tons of sense. Thanks for that recommendation. The last question is another innovator, somebody in the industry that you think we should have on the show.
Connor from Shepherd Cloud PIMS. They're doing a lot of innovating things right now, and they actually integrate with our Fetch It software that pulls the client record up. So they're really good innovators, and they're really open to listening to the practices and making changes to help the practices succeed.
Thank you so much for listening to the Veterinary Innovation Podcast. If you want to hear about our new episodes, please follow us on any social media channel. Also, you can check out our website at veterinaryinnovationpodcast.com. See you next week.